Everybody hear me? People in the back, okay? I'm Paul Costello. It's an honor to be here. Deeply appreciate all of you being here on the line for this community, on the line for democracy, on the line for the future in the face of climate change and the tremendous destruction that we've seen in our downtown in the last couple of months. Thanks for being here and being dedicated to the future of this place. Can't hear me? I'm going to hold it closer. Okay, thanks. So, Henry Adams said, unity is vision. It must have been part of the process of learning to see. You think about how a baby puts together color, light, shapes, movement, and over about 6 months, they turn into real things that move forward. Visions like that too. We've put a lot of ideas out there. There's been a lot of brainstorming in this process. And now we're going to where we gestate perception, unity, the ideas that we stand for as a community that we want to move forward together, and structural ways to begin to do that work. So it's a great honor to be here and be part of this process with all of you this evening. I want to just summarize. This is the third meeting, the final meeting in this phase of discussion for the future of the city. The first one was really a brainstorming session. It was sharing some of the challenges, the trauma, the first ideas we had around the future. The last meeting at the State House about 10, 12 days ago was about bearing down, looking deeper into the issues that a steering committee selected as good foundations for digging deeper and kind of coming up with concepts that are kind of at the level of priorities that we could look at. We've digested the ideas in the first session. We looked at all the priorities that hit the table in the second session. We looked at the Padlet information. We looked at the Zoom chat from the first meeting. We looked at emails and messages and so forth that came in on this whole process. And we added up to bring the list that's on the wall and that you should have in your hands of ideas that have come from the community. We didn't make any of it up. I'm personally neutral to what you end up choosing as priorities, but we do want to move. And everyone talks about meetings like this and says, the last thing you want to do is get together and not build action from it. So tonight's the night to gear up, to line up, to build some work towards action and moving this all forward.
Oh, jeez.
Please mute yourselves.
And I've done this a lot, enough to see that the power in this kind of process and the power of the community comes when people build a collective spear point of activity. When we get beyond faction, we line up for the common good, and results follow, funding follows, and things move, and we have real progress. So we're at the end of one phase of a dialogue, beginning of the next, and I'm really appreciating you all being here. We've got a couple of announcements to make, and I want to introduce Ben Doyle from the Montpelier Foundation and Katie Trouts from Montpelier Live.
Thank you. I just wanted, before we even get started, can we just give a thank you to Paul Costello for all his work? I know you folks have seen it in these meetings, but behind the scenes, the amount of work that this man has put into it, he's done a real service to our community. As Paul said, my name's Ben Doyle. I'm on the Montpelier Foundation, Katie Trouts with Montpelier Alive. We just wanted to give you an update on the fundraising and the granting that the Montpelier Foundation, Montpelier Alive did. And, we set out with a goal to raise $2 million, which was about 10% of the estimated economic impact to businesses in the downtown. And I'm pleased to say that as of today, we've raised $2,030,000 from all of the help of you people. That's really a testament to you. And there's obviously still a lot of work to do, but I think that shows what this community is capable of. And I think we're really just getting started in the good work ahead. And to talk more about that, I want to hand it off to Katie.
Thank you. And on behalf of Montpelier Live, I want to thank you for being here with us this whole time. And it's a real example of our community strength. And we see that over and over again as you show up. So thanks for coming tonight. Yes, we've met our goal and we're really excited about that. We have granted one round of around $500,000 already as a direct kind of emergency response. And then we are in the process of granting a second round of around $1 million to the downtown businesses who are affected by this flood. And we're continuing our fundraising. We have 2 events coming up that I know about that are fundraising events, and that won't be all. We will continue through the fall. So tomorrow night, Friday night at Barry Opera House, Capital City Concerts is doing a fundraising concert there with a pianist. And then on Saturday, we have the Central Vermont Recovery Benefit, flood recovery benefit that will benefit both Montpelier and Barrie. And we have a great lineup of musicians on the State House lawn from 3 to 7 p.m. on Saturday. I hope you can join us for that, for a great community celebration, which we all need, but also to support more efforts in our downtown recovery. So thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it. It's great to see you. And I will hand the mic off to Paul for the next steps.
Thank you two so much for all that you're doing for Montpelier. Can we have a round for them? So we've got an incredibly vigorous agenda tonight to move forward that will be decisive and will gear us up and set the next stage for this process moving forward. I want to make an announcement on behalf of Montpelier Alive, the Montpelier Foundation, and with the city in partnership around the structure of and movement of this process. From the beginning of this process, we've heard over and over again, people calling for a new leadership structure to take recovery and resilience seriously into the future. That we need to drive from ideas to implementation. We can't leave ideas on the table. We can't look back in 10 years when this happens again and say, what happened to all those ideas? Why wasn't there follow-up? Why didn't things move? Why are we still in the same circumstance? We heard a great desire to give voice and power to the community in the future to look at resilience. The desire to engage the incredible expertise of Montpelier residents, to unite public and private efforts to build a strong, united front to drive forward resilience in the community, to drive with vision and energy around resilience, around consistent and determined work. I have to flip this around. To link and coordinate public efforts and private sector groups and what downtown's doing and what people are doing and all the ideas that hit the wall in this process. And to connect with communities beyond ours, to be a convener of the watershed, if necessary, to bring people together to look beyond one project that might bring the water level down at 6 centimeters, to look systemically at the watershed and what can be done regionally together. To convene and coordinate community groups, action teams, give them support as identified by the community over time. So this process is the beginning of that, not the end. So Montpelier Alive, Montpelier Foundation, the city, we've all heard this loud and clear. And together today, we announced a plan that's in process that we'll look for your feedback on to commission a Montpelier Commission on Recovery and Resilience to work together. And we would work together to raise funds to hire a Montpelier Recovery and Resilience Director to carry forward this work with help and support from community groups, the city, and others. So as we set priorities tonight, we're going to look for the engagement of people from Montpelier, and all of us are partners in resilience and recovery, to move priorities forward that are established. And we have a one-page draft for this process that we'd love to share with you that we'll pass around. And we'll look for people at the end of the evening as you're in your working sessions to sign in that you're interested in working on that priority in the future. And we'll be getting back to people to begin to convene priority work in these action teams potentially in the future. this room tonight, in that period when we're in breakout, will be a larger discussion of the idea of this commission, and people can share their ideas for goals and some of the actions that it should be taking early on. We'll also, at the end of the evening, talk about how we're going to begin to take applications to be on the commission. And we'll walk through some of the steps that you could take to apply to be a member of the group. Okay. So that's where we are with that. And we think it's going to be a good, uniting and strong structure. And we also think that it's something that's fundable and can be a useful driver for our unity as the work moves forward. So let me just walk through what we're going to do through the course of the evening here. First, we're going to review the ideas that have hit the table through these two first meetings that we've got on the wall, but that you also should have as a sheet in front of you. We're going to walk through those really quickly so that we all hear them and we all think about them. We all set aside our predisposition to really listen and think about what are the most doable ones, what are the ones within our power, what are the ones that we can organize around efficiently and get done and drive forward on. And then we're going to vote on them. Everyone's going to have 8 dots. People on Zoom are going to have dots. We're going to do this together. And we're going to add up what turns into priorities. We're not going to limit it for 5 priorities or 15 priorities, but we're going to see how that plays out. And all this material, nothing's going to be lost. No idea is a bad idea to someone. We're going to keep all these ideas in the stream, but we'll bear out for the working groups tonight to think more deeply about 5 of them. And in this room, we'll talk about as I said, the organization of the new commission. And in those rooms, we'll do some action planning with facilitators. Just briefly, we'll only have a half hour or so. We're going to knock down what are some of the first things that should be done in this area to get organized, to, what are some of the low-hanging fruit, or the things we could be doing this year right now to move this particular area forward. Then we'll come back and we'll have some time to conclude and think where we are. We'll talk about how to apply for the commission. We'll close up shop. And we'll then have the opportunity, again, if you weren't in one of those working committees, the things we could be doing, sign in, express your interest in potentially being on a committee like that into the future. Okay? So, everybody got the idea? All right, so let's start then. We want to first start by reviewing these action ideas together. And I know this is going to seem slow, but it's really important to listen. Because, we all have something we want to champion maybe, but we really want to pay attention to what everyone else is thinking, okay? Before we go and vote for the thing that we want. So we're going to actually take the time to read these sheets. And John and I, where's John? Oh, he's coming. We're going to walk the room with these microphones. It's a little bit like a game show, okay? All we want you to do is read the next one. So I'll look for volunteers and we'll start over here. Is there someone who would read the first idea on the list? Sure. Thank you.
Where they get my glasses on. Okay. Develop a recovery and resilience leadership structure. Recovery and long-term process for developing resilience will require unity of action, clear public authority. A public-private authority should be commissioned, funded, and staffed to bring together the city, leading nonprofits, and all forces for good in partnership to act on public priorities for and drive implementation toward recovery and resilience. This structure would work to build deep, inclusive community engagement, foster key leadership on diverse aspects of recovery and resilience. The commission and its director would convene that from neighboring towns for the evaluation and development of resilience efforts that help manage future flooding through the full watershed.
Thank you. The next one? Okay, thank you. And maybe just say your name. Stand up and say your name so people can get to know you.
My name is Chris Piatek. The second one is declare a climate emergency. The city should declare a climate emergency to elevate the dialogue about the climate change era we live in. The declaration can serve as an outreach and education tool and can be used to help identify some key steps the state and city should take to reduce its own carbon footprint. By joining with other communities that have made similar declarations, Montpelier could make significant contributions to climate policy conversations at the State House. The declaration would also serve to create space for new voices, specifically younger Montpelierites looking to engage in climate advocacy tied to their own community.
The third one. We're just like therapists here. We can wait. We get paid by the hour. Yeah.
Okay.
No editorial comment.
Okay. We should create a community carbon footprint assessment tool that will help us to track our personal and family impacts and help everybody participate and feel engaged in reducing our collective climate pollution.
Thank you.
The fourth one is Montpelier should reduce its carbon impact by addressing transportation and heating. Working together, Montpelier residents and businesses should address Vermont's two biggest carbon pollution contributors. Transportation, by taking steps such as using paint on our streets to make them more bike and pedestrian friendly, increasing the availability of electric vehicle chargers, advocating for additional EV incentives, and improving local public transit in Montpelier. Heating buildings, by helping people who are rebuilding now to access and afford non-fossil fuel and efficient solutions by promoting and expanding incentives, exploring possible local regulations such as no new fossil fuel heating in new construction, and exploring ways to expand the use of the district heat system.
Thank you so much. The next one. Stand up and say who you are.
I'm Judy Walk. Let's see, protect the wastewater system. The city should act now to improve defenses against flooding of the wastewater treatment facility on Dog River Road, which were tested and reached their limits in the July flooding. Immediate actions could include conducting a risk assessment of the facility, building or revising a capital improvement plan, convening state and federal funding agencies to consider financing, options, and developing updated contingency plans should the facility fail during a future flood event.
Thank you so much. The next one. Sir.
Improve Wrightsville Dam. Montpelier, either through the city or a community-led task force, should work collaboratively with the Department of Environmental Conservation to evaluate and improve the operations and infrastructure of the Wrightsville Dam for enhanced flood control. Further work should advance water retention within the whole upstream watershed of the North Branch to slow the flow of water into the reservoir. Bring engineers and environmental scientists together to evaluate potential water storage further upstream, evaluate potential pre-flood releases at the dam, and investigate the limitation on water release based on the current generating system and pressure from high waters.
The restoration of traditional.
Thank you so much.
Yourself.
Next one.
Science of progress.
John's ready over there too. So
and offered a 10% pay hike plus 2-3% lump sum.
Re-envision downtown through a facilitated public engagement process. Re-envision Montpelier's downtown. This effort should include revisiting previous planning, including the proposals that emerged from the Net Zero Montpelier competition. Architects, artists, engineers, and citizens in all their diversity can contribute their ideas for downtown improvements and long-term design changes. Implementation will depend on work to raise funding and to build partnerships with and benefits for property owners.
thank you so much. The next one.
I am Cara. Celebrate and boost Montpelier's downtown in recovery. Downtown cleanup and beautification efforts can start now. Parties and celebrations can accompany each store, restaurant, and business that opens its doors. Events and promotions can be organized even now. Residents can bring their patronage downtown to support businesses early and throughout the recovery period. Montpelier should look at the organizational structures in place and add hired staff and volunteers to support organizations like Montpelier Alive to provide leadership and engage the public. Montpelier should leverage the connections of Vermont's dynamic arts community to attract nationally renowned talent for benefit events.
Thanks so much. We have someone here.
I'm Paul Carnahan. Invest in an adaptive downtown. With more floods likely in the downtown floodplain, Montpelier should do everything possible to protect public and private property, homes, stores, and downtown buildings. Currently, steps toward building hardening, elevating buildings, appliances, and inventories, mitigating impacts and adapting in the downtown, and options for moving some businesses and inventory space are being led by individual homeowners, merchants, and building owners who often lack access to public funding resources and or the capacity to navigate existing financing options. The task force could gather and share best practices, raise money to help businesses afford transitions, and work to leverage resources like those of Efficiency Vermont to replace appliances and home and business utilities.
Thank you. She's been waiting.
Emily Seifert. Invest in an adaptive downtown. Raise state, federal, and philanthropic funds for recovery and resilience. Working together, the public needs to advocate for more grant funding for the downtown from the city, the state, the federal government, and philanthropy, both to support recovery and to invest in best practices that will make the downtown more resilient in the face of future flooding events. A task force should be convened to quantify the economic impact on the city, businesses, and homeowners. This analysis can be used as a foundation for a capital improvement plan to advocate for state, federal, and philanthropic assistance, and appropriately reprioritize existing funds for recovery and resilience initiatives. In addition to public or philanthropic funding, the analysis could be used to attract the attention of the private sector and investors interested in green investing. The congressional delegation, governor, and legislature should be called upon to activate resources and provide maximum flexibility for their rapid deployment.
Sarah Norton. A regional commission should be convened to develop a plan for flood prevention. This task force would evaluate and implement ways to reduce flooding. Montpelier should act as the convener of a visionary and diverse leadership team of citizens informed by engineers, hydrologists, architects, and municipal leaders from towns from throughout the Upper Winooski watershed to map flood impacts, study potential amelioration projects, and design and implement solutions to wetland absorption areas to reduce the speed and flow of water to minimize damages in future flooding events. This team could work together to evaluate and implement steps, including slowing the river through watershed management, increasing capacity at Wrightsville Reservoir, and expanding green infrastructure to lessen backflow into the city during future flooding events.
Sarah Lesniansky. End hunger. Montpelier should commit itself to being the first state capital in the nation's history to be free from hunger. Working together, the churches should establish a centralized, coordinated charitable meals system in Montpelier by developing a shared kitchen in meals site. This initiative should draw upon the expertise of statewide food security organizations like the Vermont Food Bank and Hunger Free Vermont, and could leverage Montpelier's capital status to attract national funding for the nation's first hunger-free state capital.
Thank you so much. Someone else? Sir.
Thank you. Paul Bofa, address the housing crisis. In the short term, Montpelier needs to be nimble and quick in supporting the development of housing for all who need it in the city, including through home share approaches. In the long term, support the rapid development homes in the right places, especially above the floodplain, with low-cost options and units that meet the wide spectrum of accessibility needs. The Elks Club property development should be informed by and/or accelerated by the immediate need, and new partnerships, including with private developers prepared to accelerate new home construction, considered.
Thanks so much.
Liza Earl Centers. Improve mental health in the community. Community mental health must remain a short and long-term priority. In the short term, a team of residents and service providers could organize to promote community education around mental health issues, advance the recognition of current challenge, and to evaluate and fill gaps in current services. In the long term, the Montpelier community needs to come together to develop third spaces, places that build community and interaction beyond private homes and workspaces, where residents can gather and connect with one another. While the trauma of the recent flooding has impacted all of Montpelier citizens, particular focus should be placed on supporting the most disadvantaged residents, including the unhoused or those experiencing substance misuse disorder.
Thank you. Someone else? Thank you.
Nancy Scholes. Montpelier should detoxify. The city of Montpelier should institute testing, communications, and awareness about how to clean the city and prevent health impacts of toxins, mold, and other health hazards associated with the flood. In the long term, the city should set clear goals and expectations for outcomes of what remediation work is done. Working collaboratively with the Central Vermont Solid Waste District and other organizations, both public and private, involved in waste stream management, Montpelier should actively support the hazardous waste mitigation in the region and promote outreach efforts to homeowners, informing them of existing resources for waste disposal.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Support the future of agriculture and advance food security for all. A team formed to support agriculture and food security in the Montpelier area should liaison with the farm to plate to incorporate their data and expertise into local planning efforts to advance local agriculture and food security. A team formed to lead food security efforts should vigorously support the FEAST program in the short and long term. It should create a public media campaign to raise awareness of farm and food system vulnerabilities and long-term sustainability for Montpelier. Advocating for local purchases and supporting farms could be augmented by starting a grassroots campaign to change the state's agricultural budget with a focus on community-based and diversified operations and away from dairy.
Thank you. The next issue.
Thank you. James Ray. Improve preparedness communications and disaster alert systems. Montpelier should advance the accessibility and preparedness information and disaster notifications. A process should be developed to assess and improve how communications connected with seniors, people with disabilities, unhoused people, and tenants. Notifications and alerts should include more geo-targeted information with more specific information about what actions people need to take. Montpelier could also improve broad notification systems for different types of events, using a siren, local radio, and mobilizing a volunteer network for in-person communications to the most vulnerable. We should encourage and educate on how to sign up for VT Alert regularly. Parentheses, send out in water bill, posters, dropped in mailboxes, etc., and make city preparedness and recovery plans more broadly known and available.
Thank you. Last one.
Hi, I'm Alaya Morning. Build a Montpelier Resiliency Volunteer Brigade. establishing a volunteer group or network for preparedness and disaster deployment that is backed by professional support, training, and has a budget, potentially with a paid coordinator position. This effort could feature the revival of the capital area neighborhoods and build off of volunteer response from this flood. This volunteer network would be organized ahead of time and connect with existing orgs, city, Montpelier parks, Meals on Wheels, schools, medical center, etc., ready to mobilize in future emergencies. This group can support the city and its residents and businesses and help craft and create volunteer tracking systems so it is clear who is doing what in disaster events.
Thank you so much. So that's a lot of information. And obviously there's overlap between these. Some of them might be parts of other ones. There are different orientations in terms of starting points. Let's remember before we think about voting that none of this goes away. We're going to consolidate all these ideas into a report so that we don't lose any of this thinking. And as the work moves forward, we can always look back. We also know that people prioritize one thing, start working on it, and 6 months later they recognize, oh, that other idea is part of this. We need to do that too. So this is democracy. We're not making rules that prevent us from doing other things in the future, and we're not voting anything off the island. We also aren't making legal votes here that are binding on the school board or binding on our elected representatives or the city. We're making votes and we also aren't voting for what we want Washington, D.C. someday to do, right? We're in Montpelier. And when you're voting with your mind, but also your heart. What would you stand for? What would you support? What might you actually put your back to and be on a committee to drive forward? What might you contribute to make it happen? Okay. So it's not an abstract exercise. It's more than a poll, but it's not a legal vote that's binding on anybody. Okay. So with that said, what we want to do is we're right on time with the meeting tonight. And what we want to do is champion what's most important. So I'd love to give, oh, wait a minute. We skipped a whole section. That's why we're on time. We may need to come back to that at the end. See, that's how organized this is. But I think we go forward from here and come back. So when you think about these 18 or 20 ideas, which ones are most within our power? Which ones answer the fundamental challenges that are presented to us for recovery and for climate preparedness in the future? Which ones do you think we can get behind and drive forward? And so we'll ask people to take a minute or so, or even less, just to say what you're for. Don't say these three are bad ideas and I'm for this one. We just want to know the one that you're for. And this is your opportunity to convince other people to vote for it, okay? So be very quick, but be on point for why it's the priority for you, why it's the thing that needs to be driven forward. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Gail Johnson. I live in East Montpelier, Vermont. I was flooded out of my apartment from the Winooski. I still love the river. It's part of where we are. I see this as, I know I have to be short. There's two things. We're trying to do recovery and resilience on one side, and we're trying to do flood prevention on the other side. Now they're both important, but if you don't have the flood prevention and have that commission going, what's the use of it? Because it can happen again, right? We need to have that river flow like it should and be able to have access to floodplains, perhaps create new watersheds, get it spread out so this doesn't happen again. So I would say the commission to me is the most important.
Paul, I've got.
Yes, go.
Hi, I'm Thomas Weiss. I think a regional commission should be convened to develop a plan for flood prevention, again, as the most important of these items. The flood that happened in Montpelier began in Cabot and Woodbury and Williamstown. And in order to reduce what happens here in Montpelier, to increase our resilience and reduce our need for recovery, I think we need to work together with all of the communities in the watershed upstream of Montpelier.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. So we're going to ask you to be as short as you can so that we can get as many voices on the table as we possibly can. We also aren't going to let go of the mic.
Hi, I'm Zoe Niederland in Montpelier. My 6 would be the 2 that relate to slowing down and managing water upstream of Montpelier, the one about continuing to work on Wrightsville, the one about helping people and businesses be more prepared for flood waters in the future, and the 2 that overlap about having a great volunteer system and notification system in Montpelier.
Thank you so much.
My name is Phil Dodd. I'm going to use some of my dots on leadership structure, but I have a question about that. It sounds like there is a Commission for Recovery and Resilience being formed in any case. So should I save my dots for something else?
That's a question for you. There is going to be this overarching commission, and it may immediately form that separate working group to make sure that happens. But I think you should vote for what you think is most important and go for it.
I'm going to advocate for reduce our carbon impact by creating an assessment. I think this is the kitchen table. I think this is when my grandchildren and my friends and I can sit around and we can talk about exactly what we're doing as individuals to really feel like we're making a difference in this. And it's not, well, China's still building coal plants. It's not, but somebody's doing something else. It's what we're doing at the kitchen table as our community to help this climate emergency.
Thank you.
My name is Kirk Gardner. We're in an extremely unique position here in Montpelier right now. We can make a big difference around the world and certainly around the country if we can come up with an idea which is compelling, which is engaging enough, and which clearly moves people's context of flooding and national emergencies forward. Right now, people are not taking actions largely because they feel it's too big a problem, it's beyond them, they can't handle it. If we can find a way to change that context here in Montpelier in our reactions so people can see there is something they can do and it will make a difference, we will make a profound change in this. I hope we take that advantage.
Thank you so much.
I'm Eve Jacobs Carnahan. I live in Montpelier. I'm going to vote for the Regional Commission to develop a flood plan prevention. But the second thing I'm going to vote for, I think is super important, is protect the wastewater system. As we heard it described at the last meeting, it sounded as if that we were very, very lucky that the wastewater system wasn't overwhelmed. And I think that even though that won't prevent a flood, that if that were to fail, we would be in an incredibly more devastating position than we are right now.
Thank you so much. Yes, let you come out.
Hi, I'm Tessa.
What are you for, Tessa?
I think people whose houses were hurt in the flood should get their houses fixed first.
People whose houses were hurt in the flood should get their houses fixed first, and that should be a cornerstone priority.
Thank you so much. I've got someone here. Okay, go for it.
Hi, I'm Colin O'Neill, resident of Montpelier. I'm in support of the commission to prevent future flooding. And I just want to throw out a quick data point. When Montpelier flooded, there was 970 cubic feet per second being released from the Wrightsville Reservoir. 24,000 cubic feet per second were entering Montpelier through the main branch of the Winooski. And that didn't overflow upstream. The capacity from the confluence of the North Branch and the Winooski downstream is where the issue was, but we weren't off by much as far as the capacity of that river downstream. So looking at from the confluence downstream, using elevation change, taming the river and embracing it, and celebrating the river and finding ways to get closer to it, but reducing the hazard created by the river currently.
Thank you so much.
I'm Steffi Lehar, and I think it was Thomas. I'm going to save some of my dots too for the
developing a public-private leadership structure. I think that's so important that we get a good one. I also just wanted to comment on one other. I was listening to the Surgeon General talk about endemic despair, actually, in a really eloquent way the other day. So I'd like to improve mental health in the community in a very broad way, not just about mental health crises, but strengthening mental health for everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Larry Gilbert, and I think every cause needs a banner to follow, and therefore I think having declaring a climate emergency is an essential first step so we all head in the same direction.
Hi, I'm Joe Romano, and I have two in particular. One was to invest in an adaptive downtown where we can still have a city, make it vibrant, and have businesses there. But we can't do that unless we have this commission that works with the water and embrace the water, celebrate with it, and find ways to support the water in what it needs to do in any moment in time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vic Wadagno. I just want to emphasize that on the heels of the climate emergency that we're dealing with a flood now, but as was mentioned in the last one, that we don't know what will come next in this. So how we go about looking at it, I'm an advocate for the regional commission, but so far Vermont has been informed by engineers, hydrologists, and architects. There needs to be a new appreciation of the ecological system. So I know it's a minutia point, but we really need to emphasize ecological design and systems thinking.
Thank you so much.
My name's Carol Rose, and I really think we need to take care of the people in Montpelier when there is a crisis and an emergency. And it was very confusing, and there are a lot of PTSD people that are dealing with trauma because there really wasn't the leadership and there wasn't the direction of what people should do, where they should go, how they could get. I mean, it kicked in really fast after, but the day after the flood, there were people that were just in despair and there was no direction for them.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Copans. Something that hasn't been mentioned tonight, but fits within two of the points that people have been talking about. One is the commission, and the second is the adaptive downtown, is our schools. The building you're sitting in tonight flooded. This gentleman on the end of this row said very eloquently at the first meeting about how the rivers need to go where they need to go, and they're coming right through here. And I think we need to re-envision how we operate our schools. Not operate, but where we have our schools. And I think this is the time to think about combining U32 and Montpelier.
Thank you.
Hi, Dan Jones. This is an expansion of the idea of better communication and emergency response. I think we need to create an emergency preparedness commission, independent, that can review and study what is possible in terms of response plans to address failures during the recent flood and creation of a new plan with specific responsibilities assigned, activation triggers, and community engagement. Said plan should also be appropriate to other possible emergencies such as heat events, fires, and other climate emergencies.
So Dan, are you suggesting that a group that was formed on that would look at that language as well? Or are you making a motion to add?
I'm making a motion to add that would be that communication function would be a subset of this.
Okay. Do people understand that motion? It's well, he's basically saying he wants to change the language that's in the sheet on that particular item to add language that describes a new commission that would oversee and work with the city, I'm assuming, to drive this.
The larger, what is emergency? It's a larger version of what does emergency preparedness require in the climate change era, because we are now looking at something where things will be repeating more often. We have to have a better response plan. We didn't see it worked in the last flood, and so we need something that's actually going to be appropriate for the conditions we will be facing.
So Dan, would this work with the city or would it be above the city somehow? An independent voice. Okay, so it is different than the one that's on the wall. I think we should write it on the wall. What's the name that you give it?
Emergency Response Commission.
Okay, John, could you write that Emergency Response Commission? And you've been waiting nicely. Thank you.
Better response plan. We didn't see it.
Hi, I'm Michelle Braun, and I'm glad that Montpelier is interested in regional coordination.
Would this work
I
with the
was
city or would it
asked
be above the city somehow?
tell everyone
An
if I had the
independent voice.
opportunity.
Okay, so it
Cabot
is
and
different than the one
Plainfield
that's on the wall.
are
I
ahead
think
of
we
us.
should
They've
write it
already
on the,
formed these
write it on
committees,
the wall. What's the
and
name
I
that
think
you
it's
give it?
really important to make that connection between the
Okay.
headwaters and the downstream
Emergency
communities.
Response Commission.
The other
You've
thing
been
that I
waiting.
think is important is this preparedness communications. And on that point, the forecast for the next 10 days has a lot of rain, and the groundwater's at max and the rivers are high. So everybody pay attention.
Yes, thank you. It's ominous to have a forecast like this. Yes, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Val, and I'm from Southern Vermont, but I work with Vermont Center for Independent Living. And related to different types of alarms, different type of signals, giving emergency response notification. I mean, people have phones, but we also need to add access for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. They always have to, people who are deaf or hard of hearing always have to ask for interpreters, ask for things, any type of emergency responses to be interpreted, especially if something is going on the TV. So we need to make sure that people who are deaf and hard of hearing have access to sign language interpreted messages so they know when there's an emergency.
Thank you so much. Okay. Go, John. I'm looking at a couple of people who've already spoken. I want to make sure we can get as many as we can before we close voting.
Hi, I'm Jared Duvall, and so many good and important ideas have been raised. One that I haven't heard that I want to give extra attention to is one that I think undergirds our ability to do a lot of the others, which is the one around raise state, federal, and philanthropic funds for recovery and resilience. I think a couple of key lines in this description really stood out to me. Convening a task force to quantify the economic impact on the city, businesses, and homeowners, and using that analysis as a foundation for a capital improvement plan to advocate for state, federal, and philanthropic assistance. So much good work has already been done, including by the Montpelier Foundation and Montpelier Live and others, but we know that there will be additional need going forward, and that quantification and task force exercise, I think, really is a key kind of systemic undergirding of everything else.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Peter Walk. I appreciate everybody being here today. Appreciate all your work putting all of these together. I do want to give some room for the groups that are going to meet tonight to sort of be expansive in their thinking along these. While these are one paragraph summaries, they may not be the precise route we need to go down. I can think of other ways beyond a regional commission to think about how waters flow and how they come together, and to pull in the various points of view from engineers and architects to the natural systems that flow. And I just want to make sure that we're not confined, that we are thinking more broadly, so that we can get to the solutions that we need and not just where we've gotten to on the.
Great. Thank you so much. Other things that you'd like to champion?
Hi, Liza, and it's, I think, not a very glamorous or glitzy one, but just I really feel the importance of building the Resiliency Volunteer Brigade. I worked 6 years at the Unitarian Church here in town, and as a paid staff person, I could accomplish really very little, but with the 60 volunteers helping out, we could accomplish so much. So I think there's a lot of people in town who want to help. I know in my neighborhood, we thought, oh, we should check the sewer grate and keep that clear, but how many neighborhoods didn't have someone thinking about that? But if every neighborhood had people thinking of those things, we could do so much collectively.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Elena Guadagno. People were talking a lot at the last meeting about Montpelier being used as a role model for the rest of the country or possibly the rest of the world. And I think that public transportation and heating systems could play a key role in that, which would be really cool because it takes down carbon emissions a lot if the heating system was made differently or if there was more public transportation available.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Hi, my name is Jim
that I think the gentleman underpin a fact-based, data-driven plan. And there are other existing institutions that may limit the need for all of these new groups and so forth, not the least of which is the legislature. When's the special session? When are we floating the Vermont recovery bonds to issue the meaningful money that these downtowns are going to require? So I think let's focus as well on the existing structure of democracy and governance at the same time as we're soliciting new voices.
Thank you so much. We have some comment from people on the Zoom. Lauren.
Yes, so Lauren Hurl, and there have been around 100 people consistently online also. One comment from Ellen was, we have a huge investment in the wastewater recovery facility. We need to protect it. This is the most compelling, immediate thing we need to do. And just acknowledging people are having some audio issues online. So thank you for bearing with us. We're working on it.
Okay, thank you. Others, I think we have time for just a few more. We want to probably close this by 7:30 or so, sir.
Chris Piatek again. I've spoken the first couple of meetings about the importance of letting our rivers be rivers. That is still the nearest and dearest issue to my heart. Creating that commission, working with existing existing commissions or organizations that are already doing this work, I think is essential. But one thing I'm not seeing getting spoken much about right now is the housing crisis. I need to put in a plug for that because that is an absolute critical crisis, especially as we go into the colder months.
Thank you so much. Other comments?
Hi, I'm Peter Lux. I think it's important to say what's at stake. If this happens a couple more times in a short period of time, there will be no Montpelier. So we must prevent, we must improve our response, we must reduce the impact. That's critically important. It's wonderful to see all these faces here tonight and the community engagement. But it's also important that we know what the people who have the power to make a change are doing. We cannot just vote for people just because they share our values or because we like them. We need to know, what are you doing if we have another event 5 years from now that we do not have the same catastrophe we have today?
Okay, thank you so much.
So I just took a quick look through this list of 18 really important ideas. 7 explicitly mention the need for creating either a commission, a task force, a team, or a process for convening existing community organizations. To me, this means we must all step up every day from now on and be the leaders and the workers we've been waiting for. I'm ready to do that.
Thank you so much. Okay, one or two last comments.
Sorry, you're holding. I'm Nancy Scholes, and an immediate thing we can do as a city that is almost cost less would be to add paint to our roads so that people who are pedestrians and want to actually have a visible crosswalk, and people who bicycle but won't do it if they're fearful, but if there's a white fog line that they can bike to the right of, small changes that cost almost nothing, we have the paint, I'm sure, at DPW, would increase the feeling of safety that pedestrians and bicyclists would have. And if more people biked and walked, our collective carbon footprint would be reduced.
Thank you so much. So you'd advocate for voting for that one. We really should stick to the wall because there's a lot of ideas beyond the wall that will come into this process as we go, right? But tonight we're setting priorities. So I'd be glad of a last suggestion on a priority from the wall. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Colin O'Neill again. I just want to a comment that perhaps Montpelier isn't leading here, and we should be open to looking outside of the state for examples in Europe, in this country. Maybe we are leading, but I'm sure we can learn from a lot of other communities around the world.
Great, thank you so much. Someone want to make a last comment about one of the priorities that you would advocate for? Oh, yes, Lauren, go for it.
All right, so we had a number more come in the chat on Zoom. Several people prioritized regional watershed collaboration for flood mitigation. Somebody suggested investing in adaptive downtown needs to include a dynamic hazard mitigation and adaptation, including moving some businesses out of the current downtown center. There was a request to look at a car-free street in Montpelier. Another request to allow the river access its floodplain in safe areas, such as looking at merging U32 and Montpelier High School. And a couple people voted for restarting the CAN network. And again, some of these are in the descriptions or would fit under some of the categories. And a pedestrian-friendly city, and learning to work with the ecosystem instead of against it.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Ben?
Just real quick, I just want to say that I think when dealing these kinds of things, it's really important to focus on practicality, right? And I just want to say, I think there's two things that are essential to any of the ideas, and there's so many good ones. But one is the leadership structure to make it happen, which is priority number one. And number two is that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We need to be able to be loud and advocate to the congressional delegation, to state and federal funders to get the money to do these ideas.
Thanks so much. Okay, so I'm going to let this one fellow have the last word here, if he's going to talk about one of the potential priorities.
Okay.
I'm going to hold them.
You can hold the mic. I think these are all fantastic ideas. I respect everyone who's kind of commenting on them. I really appreciate the youth who are here today and sharing their comments, and I hope the commission gives them a place on that and encourages the youth to be a larger part of this. So thank you all who are here.
Thank you so much. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We want to do this efficiently. I'm going to ask a couple of people to help pass out dots. Everyone gets 8 dots. The colors don't make any difference at all. You can tell I did this at my kitchen table. But Ben, could you hand some of these out? Katie, you want to do some? And basically, once you get your dots, go up to the wall. You have the opportunity to put all your dots in one place if you want to. You can spread them out through the list of them. One on whichever ones are your core 8 priorities. People online who are voting don't have the option to lump their votes. They will have to choose 8 different issues. And unfortunately, just the polling options are different, but they'll still weigh in. We're going to do this really quickly, so you can start walking now if you've got your dots. Place your dots, then step way back from the wall so that everybody knows that you're done. And we can see when it's done. We'll take 5 to 10 minutes to do this. Thanks so much.
Are they same order?
Yeah.
Left to right, is this?
Yeah, from that side.
Okay, I couldn't make it far away. That's it.
How you doing?
Oh, bad.
Good.
My house is, but I'm good.
Yeah, I know your house. I spent a lot of time in the house next door, and I went into your house at one point to offer to help the day or so after.
Yeah.
But you had a crew and
I had so many people there. The community was so wonderful. So many people came to help.
But it's devastating.
Good morning. That morning, I heard my neighbor, Katie, and had a whole crew of people.
Once you voted, move away from the wall. And if you haven't voted yet, you want to do it now. You want to do it now because, thank you, Sarah. You guys, have you voted? Yep. I got her to say it.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question.
Did you vote yet?
Yes, I did. How do you guys decide what you want to do? What's the most urgent thing to do right away?
By your votes. By your vote. And then the commission will look at all that information.
I mean, some people seem to me that you got those fair dots here. Well, yeah, I think this is the time to make the change.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't sure where I was supposed to be because I missed the first couple of minutes, and so I just didn't want to be in the wrong place. But I'll just hang out and go where I'm needed. So
you might want to focus on you have a spot?
And just go from there. That works. I can do that.
When I was connecting with you, I was doing it. Come on. I think we start with the highest priorities, and then the commission will have that to work on. We can only have 5 people back. I got to. Is everyone over here done voting? You done? Go, 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 go. Are you done? All set? You guys all done voting? Yes, we are. Done? Done. You all done?
Right now, the hidden button.
Yep. When we're ready, Sarah, not yet. Hey, Paul, how are you? Yeah, it's gonna be signed up to say you're interested in working on one of those groups.
If I can't stay for that part, will there be an opportunity?
Yeah, we're gonna set it out online too.
Thank you.
Hey, if you haven't voted, now's the time, guys. We gotta move. Gotta move. John, you're gonna help count votes?
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah, and you're gonna have 2 votes. You're gonna have the vote, the dots, and then.
I'm gonna add.
Is Lauren gonna transmit those to us? You want to start?
We got to wait till everybody's done. You guys done voting?
They're done.
You should move away. You guys all done?
I am.
All done? Bill, how are you? All done?
I'm all done.
Okay, move away from the wall, please. Are you guys all done?
Yes, we're done.
Yeah, move away. You're done. You guys, are you guys done? You're done. Yeah, could you, yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, sorry. I have two more.
Okay, go
I'm
for
having
it.
a-
Oh, are you guys all done?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, vote. We gotta move.
And then we write numbers on the top.
And then we'll put a top big number, and then we'll get a number from the computer from the
Okay.
votes.
Should I start telling the numbers as soon as I'm done voting?
No, you have to wait till everybody's away from the wall. Hey, you guys have to finish up. We got like 1 minute. One minute, everybody.
I only have.
1 minute. Are you done?
Yes.
Move away, guys. Move away. Everybody here's done. You can help count the votes, and then we're gonna add.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it from online.
Okay, I need to make sure everybody's done.
I know.
Okay. All right.
I think I've been yelling at them. Is everybody done? Are you guys done? You guys, we gotta move away. We're gonna count votes. They have to be done. Oh, good. But the two dots, put one big number for that. Better get this on it. So you know where.
Yeah.
Guys, are you done? No. Finish up. We can't talk. We gotta finish this up. We gotta move. I'm done. I'm done. Move. I'm out of the way. Yes, sir. Very. Really kind of important. One,
How many votes? Look out. 70.
quick, we gotta go.
Test.
Yeah, to one about up watershed and regional collaboration.
Down further. This.
Just not, regional commission convened, that's
To,
not.
for flood prevention. It's the group that would look into watershed management up and down the.
But I don't think you need a new level of governance. I thought there was a second one that was talking about upwater.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Online.
We're going to meet the big ones together.
We gotta get this.
To clarify.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And oh.
123.
Twenty-four. 27. Sorry, I left here because I'm doing the minutes. Okay. 7. 48.
7.
83. 30.
Okay. John, let's pull them in order.
Put them in order.
Yep, let's put them in order.
Most popular up top.
Yeah. 192 here.
Here's 166. But there may be another.
Yeah. That the highest one down there?
No, this one, 123.
Okay,
Oh, 123. Let's, yeah, that one's got to go down.
Then you got 101 coming.
Folks, could I ask folks to come back together? Wouldn't it have been great to have refreshments? But we don't. Could everyone gather in your seats again? We'll get back to business. If you guys could just do that the whole way through, like getting in priority order. So, thank you, Ben. So we've done this voting exercise. We're right at 7:55, reviewing what was prioritized. You know, there's a lot of people here. There's at least 100 people online as well. They're contributing their ideas. We're all kind of dedicated to move these ideas forward. There's nothing on this wall that we can't do. And we've got some that are clear top priorities and some that are lesser. And it doesn't mean they're not important. I'm not sure how much votes ending hunger got. But if it didn't get a lot, it's not because it's not important to us as a community. I think we're sort of focusing in on the climate emergency and recovery. As we look at this idea, a regional commission should be convened to plan for flood prevention and do all the different things that are possible to ameliorate the level of rise of water in the future. Secondly, as a priority, investing in an adaptive downtown. And isn't that an interesting mixture? Someone described that we're talking about recovery and we're talking about resilience. And when we look at an adaptive downtown, we're getting prepared for the next flood, but it's also a major recovery effort to help people do that. And then protecting the wastewater system, a lot of priority around that, because that's an immediate and objective practical need. Raise state, federal, and philanthropic funds for recovery and resilience. And this is one that whatever we choose and wherever we're going with this work, it's part of an essential part of the work that we want to be doing. Develop recovery and resilience leadership structure. Some people were asking, should we vote for this one or not if it's already going to happen? So mixed votes, but it's still within the top 5 priorities. Improve preparedness, communication, and disaster alert systems. This one was given a very high mark of 101. There was the other one that Dan Jones raised. I think that they may have taken votes from each other. I think the intent of a lot of it is similar. And people do want to take a hard look at the emergency preparedness disaster alert systems and what we can do to make sure that they're completely on the ball and also that they meet the needs of all of our citizens. Then addressing the housing crisis, re-envisioning downtown, reducing carbon impact, building a resiliency brigade, improving the Wrightsville Dam. People may think, well, if we're doing this watershed evaluation, we're probably going to look at the dam as part of that, right? Declaring a climate emergency. This is something that could be done. It's something that people didn't put at the front of the line because there's so much else that's important, but it can still be coming up. Supporting the future of agriculture and food security for all. None of these go away. Celebrate and boost downtown recovery. People know that this is going to be happening and that it needs to happen, and that we have one of the greatest downtown organizations in the state with Montpelier Live that can lead that work. Emergency Response Commission, improve the mental health in the community. Again, people are dedicated to this, but it's a step from the immediate climate and recovery issue. Ending hunger is fundamental. Reducing our carbon impact with an assessment tool, and this idea of detoxifying. So none of them go away, but clearly we have some very big cornerstone issues at the top. We know that we will have a commission, and people who want to talk about the idea of this structured commission that can potentially support and oversee this work and provide some staff leadership on it should stay here. But we're going to break out into 3 rooms or 5 rooms in just a minute with facilitators to look at the regional commission idea, investing in an adaptive downtown, protecting the wastewater system, raising state, federal, philanthropic dollars for recovery. This one will stay here. And then improving preparedness, communications, disaster alert systems. So I just mentioned that Montpelier Alive may be already planning to do some of this work around celebrating and boosting downtown recovery. Does anyone want to talk about any of these in terms of their roles and responsibilities? I think we should recognize that the city and its really hardworking staff and the city council are all paying attention to this process. They've also are leading on a lot of this work. In some ways, we're outside and in some ways we're amateurs in looking at the different features of work that's at the table for city government and regional commission and other work that's going on already. And we want to be integrating with that work and supporting that work and celebrating that work as well. But I'm wondering if anyone wants to talk about any of these from the city's point of view or from Montpelier Lives or from another organization that may be doing good work on an existing commission for just a minute before we break up. Run over there. Okay.
Not working hard enough. Yeah, I mean, this is what we do all the time. We set out to celebrate Montpelier, and a part of the recovery is bringing people back downtown, and we're doing a lot of those efforts currently. That doesn't mean you can't be involved. So I would love to see people involved with those efforts, and we're starting to form committees, and I've got some leaders who are doing specific projects to bring attention to the downtown and celebrate and continue our recovery process. Please talk to me. I'm open to having more help.
Thanks. Any other comments? Sir.
Hey, everybody, I'm Connor Casey. I'm one of your state reps here. And I just want to talk about the state perspective a bit. Gentleman down there said, like, why aren't you in session right now? Like, why aren't you writing checks? I think we should be, right? It's Montpelier Alive. Heroes, the city of Montpelier, all our public employees, heroes. But you know, like $20 million for aid, coming up with a license plate program, it's not enough. We're state government. We pay taxes. We deserve to expect a bit more from state government than what we've gotten so far. And I think we can expect businesses, $186,000 in the hole right now, people waiting on unemployment checks, 18 units about to be demolished unless we raise them. The state needs to do more. So as I'm looking at that thing, I'd love to get back to work in January. January is way too long right now. We need to get back to work right now and do more. And it's reasonable for Montpelier to expect more from the state. So I really think we need to lean on it. As I'm looking at all this, it's City of Montpelier's budget, $16 million. State budget, $8.5 billion, right? We got to come together for our capital. If I look on that, Human Services Committee, Appropriations Committee, Natural Resources Committee, you can go on, Institutions Committee. I think we need to form a legislative committee ourselves under this commission and get in those rooms and raise your hand every time this comes up because the clock's ticking. We're back in 4 months and people got re-election on their minds. We're going to be out of there in May. So we got to do as much work in as short time as possible. So the state needs to play a bigger role and we're not playing enough of a role right now. So I just want to weigh in.
Thank you very much. Okay. Other comments from existing committees or other folks that want to just share a little bit about what they're doing really briefly before we break into separate rooms? Yes, very briefly.
Yep. I'm Shana Casper. I just really want to make sure that even as kind of you said, even when ending hunger gets pushed down, even with, housing at the front, even though there's space on the table for a diversity seat and for a youth seat, that's not really enough. And we need to prioritize and to make sure that we're embedding racial, economic, social, language, equity, and justice really throughout all of these different processes and all of these different spaces.
Thank you so much. That said, one last voice and then we will break.
Right. Hi, Joe Romano. I think that tonight
We also need to go, that the group who wants to work on legislature right now needs to convene in a place, in a room. And so where can we meet? Because it's not any one of these, to get the conversation going to approach the legislature.
Yeah, I think you can. I think the commission will take on all of the work that's on the wall, and looking for state and federal money is one of those things. But if Connor wants to have a group sit and talk with him, he can go down this hall here and people can go meet with him. We have these rooms. Could John help me with this? We have rooms set up. So in the auditorium here, we've got goals for the commission. Room 101, what's that first priority there? The regional commission to look at the watershed. The second one, adaptive downtown, John. I'll tell you in a sec. Protect the wastewater system. The next one is actually raise state, federal, and philanthropic funds. So maybe Connor should be in that room, and we'd all have that conversation about the state, but we want to push the feds as well, right? And we're going to need philanthropic dollars as well. We've raised 2 million, but now we're in another phase, the phase of resilience planning, and it's worthy of investment. And then improve preparedness, communication, and the alert systems, John. Okay, so here's the rooms. We will, so this, the top is the overarching commission that's going to provide leadership and coordination to this effort. This one here is the group that would look at water issues and, you know, upstream and downstream and presumably Wrightsville. So this would be meeting in room 101. Okay. Room 102 is adaptive downtown. Room 103 is the wastewater treatment plant. Room 104, raise state federal money. So room 104 for that. I'm going to put this poster on the outside so you walk by it as you're going. And then room 105, improve preparedness and alert system. Okay. So we're going to meet now. It's 8:05. We'll come back at about 8:40 instead of 8:45. Your facilitators will bring you back. And then if we have the energy, we'll do a quick visioning session where we'll say one sentence that could be part of a vision statement for the future of this project. It's going to be about state federal money, and that will be room 104. I'm going to put this on the door so that we'll have it there as you leave the room. Okay, hold on 1 second. All these rooms, 101 to 105, are straight that way on the left. Really well within my Hey, so why doesn't everyone gather right in a circle down here at the front? Let's not have a conversation across a football field on this. And we also should recognize that we have a Zoom participants who are, they can't leave the room and go to all the different rooms, so they're with us. Yeah. So anyone else who wants to participate in the conversation about the overarching commission and the one pager that was distributed, we'd love to think with you informally about the goals of this process, about how it coordinates. We're fairly confident that we can raise money for a staff person, but everything will depend on our ability to do that. We can't promise in advance. The commissioners would be appointed by a committee of Montpelier Alive, the Montpelier Foundation, and the city for efficiency. On the bottom of that sheet, it describes some of the roles and responsibilities that we're looking at, the kinds of expertise that to be involved in connecting and coordinating and convening all different groups to answer some of these core priorities. The commission will need architectural expertise, hydrology, engineering, environmental science, downtown development, fundraising, land use planning, connecting to property owners, renters, low-income individuals, nonprofit management, financing clean energy, development, housing, public health, resilience planning, experience, and other pertinent skills. And of course, we're very dedicated to involving young people and looking through the lens of diversity to make sure that we're connecting to the whole of the community and giving voice to people. So you need all of that: diversity, expertise, skilled professionals, leadership, and people with life experience that needs to be at the same table. So that's the outline, and we'd be glad to hear your thoughts about, and would it be useful if I went through the application process now, or we'll do so at the end? So be glad to hear your thoughts on the way this can work.
I just think that it should be taken under consideration that a member of the commission be someone with lived experience of this flood. So that whatever other qualifications they might have, that it's very important to have someone on the commission who actually was impacted by the flood, experienced it in some substantial way. We all experienced it to some degree, but I think someone who actually lived through it needs to be there.
Thank you so much, sir.
I was just curious how, when the commission was conceived, when I thought this whole forum was to actually decide and figure out what the commission was and how it was going to.
Yeah, I think that as a group, the sponsoring organizations were hearing the same things over and over about the absence of leadership, the fact that leadership was discoate in the community, that everyone was saying, yeah, right, have another meeting, and it's just going to stick the things on the wall, and who's going to follow up, and is there going to be any staff leadership to do this? There was also a strong sense that this shouldn't be owned by the city. There were some who thought this should be entirely separate from the city, and it would be an advisory group or a political group to push against the city. And as we thought about it, we thought, you want to add up the skills and strength. There's 100 city employees. A lot of them are working on a lot of these issues now. You don't want to disconnect from their knowledge, experience, and the hard work that they're already doing. And as outsiders try to duplicate all that, you want to add to it with vision, with connections, with leadership from the community, and engagement of community residents to move things forward. So all that was involved, but we also thought we couldn't wait. That this process has been really fast. To put this together has been very, very intense. To do all of this in a month and a couple of days. And we didn't want to let it just slide. We felt like we should start getting organized and start putting this in. So we've already started looking for resources to make this happen, because we feel like there's a great urgency to follow up on the public feelings. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you. And Cassandra, thank you for being here. And we got to thank the bridge for your absolutely sterling coverage of all of this work. It's been wonderful because you've been the cornerstone of knowledge around what's going on, and it's just so important. Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, Paul, or the state is kind of the largest. What? Oh, Dan Jones. Hi, for those. The state is the largest sort of landowner, et cetera, and participant. Are they going to be involved in this, and how, or has that been considered yet? Because it seems to me like in terms of forming this, they should be a critical component.
Yeah, it's important to know that this has happened so fast. But we did put in a call to the state, to Buildings and General Services. They're the biggest landowner in downtown Montpelier. They've got a lot of business buildings that are flood impacted and parking lots that could absorb water potentially. So yeah, they're on the radar. We've had a call into them today. We're setting up an appointment to think about their connection to this. It's possible the state could be a funding partner as well as an instrumental partner in moving things forward. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lawrence Webster. This is a small procedural suggestion idea. Throughout this whole process, the past month and a half, I've been wondering, where's the Regional Planning Commission and why are they not here and why is their voice not loud? They know this stuff already, a lot of it, I think, or should, and some of it's in their comp plan. I think the city manager, executive director of Montpelier Alive, and president of the Montpelier Foundation are given as founding members. Add a representative of the Regional Planning Commission, please.
Thank you so much for that. We've connected with them. The executive director of the Regional Planning Commission is here tonight, probably in that conversation about the watershed management. This is what they do, plans, right? We need political muscle and dollars that actually changes the field and changes the watershed. And so it's not just a planner, but we do have planner on the list as someone, and it could be the executive director of the Regional Planning Commission, or it could be someone else that connects directly to them. But the point's very well made. Sir.
My name is Mark. I have a concern about the creation of this thing being so closely tied to the city government and to Montpelier Alive. Will this body have the ability to say the bureaucratic roadblock to the course of action that we see as needed is not overly sympathized within this, and say, sorry, we're going somewhere else because you can't provide the solution? I feel like it's very important that the council itself not be beholden to the city to say we have to manage up to the city's expectations, or to, in the interests of continuing to have a voice and be part of that, to please the city manager or Montpelier Alive or any government entity. I feel like it's very important that this group be able to function outside of and independently of any government body.
That is a great observation, and it's absolutely the intent of this. The city would be part of the committee that would select individuals to be on this. There might be one city employee on this. There's not going to be people who have city votes versus people who have Montpelier Alive. I don't expect Montpelier Foundation or Montpelier Alive. They may have a one person on this commission, but most people are going to be people throughout the community that apply to be part of it. So there will always be a voting majority of people who are completely independent, and this group will be independent of the city in terms of its decision making and the chair and so forth. The challenge is that you need to also build unity, so you're not just a protest group, and that you are using money effectively to drive things forward and connecting to existing resources to move things. So we've tried to find the right balance point, and I really appreciate the question, because I think that this isn't a done deal yet. It's a deal in process. What we have on paper is our best estimate of what the plan is, but we do want to we don't want to wait. We want to start asking people to apply immediately to participate in this process. Yes, state your name, please.
Certainly. Hi, I'm Kate McCarthy. Mark, thanks for your point. Everybody, thanks for your points. I like the idea of the independence of this group, as well as those connections I like the idea of the independence of the group as well as connections for collaboration purposes. What authority does this group have?
It does not, it does not have authority over the state or over, state funds or over the city. It's a partnership that has the ability to raise big ideas in a way that, because of the situation of it following from all this public engagement, and because it's got support from Montpelier Alive and the Montpelier Foundation and the city, it's going to have a loud voice as an advocate beyond Montpelier. It's going to have the ability to coordinate and invite people together. And any number of these groups on the wall could turn into working parts of the commission immediately. So it could engage a lot of residents. There's probably 100 people ready to be involved in this work, right? And so its goal is to be an active facilitator of public process to drive this. And everything we hear from the city is that they want that it's trying to convene leadership across the watershed is beyond their scope of work and their imagination, their sense of what they can do. And so this is going to pick up a lot of things that are beyond. On the other hand, there are existing committees of the city that are doing great work and are going to be probably looking at some of these issues and saying, yeah, we're already doing that, or we could be doing that with more volunteers. And we'd like to use this as a way to add to the strength and volunteers that are working in those processes already. I'm going to come to you and first.
Okay.
Don't
touch the mic. Okay. I think what people are talking about is the tricky part. It's what is the relationship to the city and the state, and where does this group get to have a voice? And because there's not necessarily a lot of authority here, but if you can define early on where the group and how the group gets to have a voice with the city and the city council and maybe with state committees, that would be really helpful. I also just wanted to put a plug in, not to try to have so broadly representative a group that it becomes another advocacy group, a mini legislature. I really like smaller committees like this, with the idea that people are thinking strategically and not just representing something. I mean, I appreciate Andrea's point about having people with lived experience on it, but I wouldn't want it to appoint people in a way that it became an advocacy.
We know, and we don't want to build a 28 or 30 person commission. And there may be many people who can serve multiple roles, who have resilience expertise, and they're an architect and their house was flooded. So there's going to be ways to look at this in aggregate, but we don't know who's going to want to be engaged in it. So we'll see. But I think all these points around its governance and how it has voice, I think right now there's a sort of seamless interconnection between this process and the city. Everyone in the city government is listening. They're dedicated to hearing from citizens right now. And this is really a strong step. And this is a structure that can continue that. Does an external authority established by the three of us have any power over our elected officials? No. We elect officials who represent us legally. This is an entity that doesn't have power to tell city council what to do. On the other hand, city council is looking for advice and guidance to think big about the future. And this would be a tremendously valuable foil to set some of those directions and build big ideas like you were describing that can have transformational impact. You notice that things like closing this school didn't end up being prioritized at the State House, or moving the downtown up the hill didn't get prioritized in the last sessions. And I don't think it was because people were saying none of that is useful. I think it was because people were saying, let's establish structural ways to move the ball that will be in a situation to evaluate those big opportunities and be a driver for them, rather than just have a big plan that doesn't go anywhere. And this is all about, at least to my mind, and I think to the organizers, it's about driving. It's not just an advisory group, it's a group to drive. Dan. Okay.
I think my worry was too big and too cumbersome, echoing what Stephanie said. And I don't know if you've got any models in mind of places that have done this. The thing that came to my mind, and I don't know if it's relevant, but there was a whole group put together in the medical establishment during COVID, and they had a tripartite leadership, and they had links to all these various institutions and so on. And I think of a sort of hub and spoke idea with this, so that you could get expertise, but you didn't have to have a commission of 40 people. I think that would be.
I think that's very wise. And I think as we think about these groups, the potential for the formation of leadership teams in different aspects of this. Do you have a recommendation for the number of commissioners? Between 12 and 18. Lower. We've been thinking maybe 15, but that may, and some people think that's high. So
one of the things I've noticed from a number of friends who live in surrounding towns is this sense that Montpelier is the downtown for Central Vermont, that we don't have, the Regional Planning Commission is one focus, but it is kind of diffuse and bureaucratic. And I don't have a specific proposal here, but rather I think there has to be a way of having the voice of our surrounding communities involved in this, because I think they're part of our decision system. They're going to be part of our support system, and they're going to be part of what's influenced by the whole thing.
I think that's a wise, I'm a facilitator, so I shouldn't say that's a wise thing to say. But I think, usually when we've done community processes, anyone who cares about that community, who goes to school there, who's a teacher there, or who is in the next town and that's their downtown, anyone who has a psychological identification that wants to help, why would you turn them away from being on a committee to support resilience in this community? So I think it's inclusive that way. Kate, and then we'll go to.
I know this isn't an official city committee, but I'm wondering, we implemented something in the last year or so that provides stipends to folks who serve on committees in case they need to pay for childcare. And it's just I'm wondering if that could be extended to this commission just as an equity thing that would help encourage folks to apply that might otherwise be able to afford it.
It's a great idea, and it's one that we're thinking about, that people have brought to the table. And right now we don't have a dollar. Every dollar that was raised by Montpelier Foundation, Montpelier Alive, has been pledged that we're going to keep anything for our own expenses in doing this work. We're going to pour it all out through. So it will require us to raise a fair amount of money. And as we do it, you'll see in the sheet, we're thinking, we don't want to build something that has to be perpetuated forever. It has to demonstrate its value to be perpetuated. And so we're going to do an evaluation after 2 years. And we would be looking to find funding for it for 2 years. But I think it's very much on the table. And probably we need to decide that early rather than late. Yeah. Good thought.
So I just wanted to share some of the conversation that's happening from the Zoom. So one person said we need to regain our confidence in Montpelier leadership. Another said we need to have a way for community members to invest in the resilience effort, like bonds. Many of us are retired and can't give away our money, but might be willing to lend it. Someone noted this group sounds like an advisory group. Someone noted folks from Waterbury spoke at the last meeting. They had a very effective track record in moving forward an ambitious agenda over a 10-year period based on community commitment to preventing another Irene disaster. This seems similar. Someone asked, how does a committee like this drive when it doesn't have the oomph to do it? And another one, where will the force come from to move our thoughts forward? Many times ideas go to the city and die. How do we prevent this? And someone called for new council members, and somebody else said major changes require state and or federal money, which people agreed with. And there was a call for student youth members of the commission.
Well, some great thoughts and great contributions to this dialogue. Thank you. You, sir, and then Kate.
So what I think I would like to see out of this is, of course, coordination and cooperation with the city. Also the ability to say, once the city's ability has been exhausted, to be able to go to the state or the federal or any number of these ideas, it seems, is a subset of this committee, right? Whether it's raising funds at the federal or philanthropic level, whether it is coordinating efforts. I've poked my head into maybe a half a dozen or more small groups that are trying to do something, and they all have one thing in common, which is everyone has heard of some other small group trying to do something, and it's a diluted sort of energy of a lot of people who have a lot of willingness and a lot of intelligence and passion about it, but it's uncoordinated. I forgot my other point. So
Yeah, it's a great perspective that as a convening center for the future of Montpelier, it can convene and support any number of these groups. I mean, one thing that someone said, Montpelier's the place where good ideas go to die. You know, it's because we organize in opposition to each other around ideas, and we start to split them off. And this is a way to have a convening entity that pays attention and provides mutual support between different groups that are working on this long-term recovery and the resilience agenda, and drives for results, pushes the city, pushes its committees, and also raises funds to have some resources to help move pieces of it forward. Kate, did you have your hand up? And then I'll go to Lauren and then you, sir.
Thanks, Paul. Kate McCarthy. I'm curious, Paul, what do you think? Wrote it down. What do you think is the best way for a group like this to maintain its focus and avoid mission creep? By definition, a convener is going to be broad. It's going to be plugged into a lot of different topics and people and ideas and help to bring those together. The risk of the flip side of that can be inaction or mission creep. So based on what you've seen, what do you think?
You know, when I've built like 15 policy councils and I've run processes like this in communities all across the state, the first answer is it's all about leadership. And it's the same question about how do you drive the agenda in a consistent way? It's like you need to have a really vigorous, clear chair that facilitates and pulls people together with very different ideas, but finds the common ground and common direction and helps them be effective. And that's going to be essential. And then a really strong membership of strong-willed, sharp people who want to drive change. And every seat's going to be super important on this working group. But beyond that, I think you have to convene and pay attention to the needs of people, and you have to keep a laser-like focus that just as this ending hunger, which is really crucial to us and we care about, that we keep to the parts that are going to drive recovery and resilience in a consistent way. And I think people understand that. And I think you can test ideas and go back to the people to renew yourself regularly.
So this is more of an ask. Andrea alluded to it earlier that this is a huge lift and nobody can do it by himself. So before everybody goes, ask for a show of hands who's willing to put time in and help with this.
Right now, we're putting out to put in an application. So to be members of the commission. Yeah. We're going to have this process. I think that we're going to need volunteers for all of this stuff. My problem is I'm a volunteer and I'm not going to do it. I know I'm not going to continue to coordinate this. There needs to be an executive director that drives this work, and there needs to be a commission. Right now, I'm making too many decisions about what's the next agenda. How does this work? It's got to be led by a determined group of people who are thinking together in a diligent way regularly. It can't be done by an individual. And so this takes it to that other level, and a level where you hire an executive director. And that should happen very, very quickly. We're really interested in that.
I would say that makes it more important to me that the makeup of the commission be more focused on representing the community. I know there's a need for expertise and all that stuff, but somehow people have to be vetted based on their ability to provide a perspective for different parts of the community, because we know that the experiences of the flood have been really different. Sorry. I thought it was loud enough. No, that we need, just like I said, it needs to be someone who's got lived experience with this flood. We also need people who have lived experience with the different aspects of the community, if the expectation is to come up with something that the community is going to get behind.
Thank you. I think that goes from the commission to the committees and task forces that may form around all of this. So, yeah.
So, in the commission, I think they will be more bought into whatever the commission does.
Jackie Dagger. Yeah, I completely agree with that, being able to represent lived experience. I think when I'm reading about this group and listening to all of the great comments here, I'm thinking about the value of bringing together a group like this with these different experiences and what that could lend to the city and other decision makers. And in my mind, like, having these different perspectives together in this group is an opportunity to think about, you know, where things might be, where timelines might be conflicting, where prioritization is important, because this is like the things we're talking about here, they're all going to have competing timelines. And with experience like this from these different experts, that's really valuable in helping prioritize certain actions, or even convening groups to educate this commission about, you know, the issues. And it seems that one of the outcomes of something like that could be recommendations on how to approach some of these larger projects. And that could be a great way for this group to work with the city and other decision makers.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
I'm definitely want to be sure that the feelings and experiences of the city are represented. But I see this group as a steering committee. When I think of a commission, I think of a lot of people sitting and listening, but not necessarily being in a position to start implementing. And to me, people in this group are going to need to have some ability to either do it or influence it getting done, and recruiting people to flesh out whatever is starting to emerge as important priorities, and not just make recommendations to who. You know, those recommendations need to be things that they begin to say, yeah, this could work. How do we test the waters so that we're not missing something that's important to some part of the city? I totally get with that, but this idea that they're alone going to sit on the mountaintop and try to figure this all out themselves or something. I think we need to think of them as active doers and coordinators and schedulers, and a kind of a little less lofty.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll go online and then we'll go. I'm going to need to wrap up.
Yeah. So a couple additional online comments. One person noted this group needs to be driven with a passion of an effort to preserve our town in the midst of climate change. It can't get lost in process. And when there are roadblocks, it needs to be able to re-raise the critical goal. It isn't about official authority to get things done. It's about the collective commitment to achieve important things. Someone's already asking how to apply, which I think you're going to talk about at the end, and that's exciting. Yes, I can.
You should post it, and it will show them how to apply it.
Great.
There'll also be press release going out today or tomorrow, tonight or tomorrow.
Perfect. So it'll be posted and press release. Decisions will be made by individual commercial property owners, business owners, and homeowners. Decisions are being made now, underscoring the urgency. And I was just going to note too, I mean, we've talked a lot about kind of limitations of the city, or how does this group push the city? And I just want to note, like, I hope this group is thinking beyond the city. The city government does certain things. The state does some things. Nonprofits in our community do something. So I would hope it would come in with a much more broad vision, which I think is what's reflected on the wall, and look at what does the city do well, and then what needs to not be the city, or needs to be a partnership of the city and other actors.
Thank you.
So if I'd like to tag on to the idea of the doers and just share a little bit about how management works at where I work. All of our so-called middle management is volunteer is a volunteer force. No one is paid for those positions. No one really has bosses. But what we do have is a regional leader. And then below that person, there are leaders that cover specific areas. In the case of business, it's things like growth and performance, diversity, equity, inclusion, et cetera. And then each of those leaders is free to form their own team to make sure that many voices is heard. And then that leader comes back to the group. So it keeps the main group somewhat lean and small. I think there are about 5 or 6 of us, but the entire leadership team is somewhat large. There are maybe 30 or 40 people, but it doesn't get bogged down. And then each one of those leaders is tasked with either their task for that week, month, whatever it is, or delegating that task to someone else on their team, whether that be the watershed person or the raising money person or the shouting upstream at the state and federal government person, et cetera. They have deliverables that is their responsibility to deliver.
We have to close up. And hey, Ben, can you run down and tell everyone to come back? Yeah. Thanks. Not 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
As you could anticipate, I'm a little disappointed about the results. You could have anticipated those 5 2 weeks ago, even before you wrote them. It's coming up. There's nothing exciting here. There's nothing that's going to engage anybody. Not because because they're not out there, because there's no room in this process for those kinds of ideas. We need to find a way to get those ideas into this process.
I suspect that people will bring these ideas into these committees and things will be driven forward. So I'm optimistic, but thanks so much. Sarah, is everybody coming back in? Oh, okay. We're going to shift in just a second here and start talking about points of vision, but we also want to hear from our facilitators. So we got to move fast. Any volunteers to help rally people down the hall? I can do it. Sure. Thank you so much. Any other things online? Are we all set? What's that? There's a question online. Does the city have a capital needs assessment? And the answer is yes, they do. And I think obviously all of this is going to enter the capital needs assessment as work goes forward. Okay, well, we're taking a short break. We should just start, huh?
Got your email, so I can send you this.
Could I ask, let's just do a rapid fire from facilitators. And I'm going to ask the facilitators to just be ready, share one or two things from your group. Could I ask people to quietly move their way in and facilitators to get ready to just say one or two things in 30 seconds. I'm going to call on Ben Doyle to start and tell us what group you were in and what some of the discussion was, Ben.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We had a really lively and I think productive conversation on advocating for state, federal, and philanthropic funds. There are a couple specific action steps that could be moved forward. I think it begins with quantifying the economic loss for businesses, homes, the municipality, understanding what the ask actually is. Another idea that came up was, do we have a lobbyist? Does the city have a lobbyist that's in the state house? And another idea that came up was like, there needs to be a special session and we should be advocating for that.
Thank you very much. Please, Alyssa Sharon. And Alyssa, what group were you with?
I had the wastewater group, and we talked about community engagement and education around the state of the wastewater facility. We talked about doing a risk assessment and using past reports and information that had been filed and analyses. And then we talked about natural solutions. So increasing floodplain, doing buyouts, doing plantings. And we also talked about engineering solutions. So using the road there and the raising of the road as a levee, doing floodgates, more stormwater and drains. And then we also talked about looking at other models. We're not the first city who's probably dealt with this. And so what have other folks done either in state or out of state?
Thank you so much. Gary Holloway. Share what your group came to.
So I was with the group talking about resiliency planning, and a few ideas that came out of that was really looking at who's already doing this work. There's a lot of nonprofit groups. The city's involved with doing some of this work. There's a lot of professionals who are doing studies at universities who are already doing some of this work. So let's try to glean some of those ideas and talk to the experts and talk to groups. So we're making sure that they're A, part of the conversation, but B, we're not reinventing the wheel and we're taking ideas that have already been being studied and we can start to look to implement them as it relates to Montpelier. There's some work being done around, pictures of the watershed so we can kind of understand kind of the greater picture that Montpelier plays in that watershed. So learning more from that. And then we talked a lot about resources. I'm probably running out of time, aren't I? So just collect lists of, technical resources, people who are already doing this work, contact information. So we know like what skills that they bring. And then big part of this, I'm just going to leave it on this, is two things quickly. Using technology to kind of communicate so that people who can't participate in these types of meetings can participate in the conversations. And then finally, Paul, that we make sure that we don't have, there's going to be burnout in people who join a commission and step off. How can we keep the conversation going and constantly keeping people involved, particularly of, youth and of all ages?
Thank you so much, Gary. John Kopans.
Thank you. We had a group talking about investing in an adaptive downtown, and I would say it's a little hard to synthesize, but really a lot of it was developing a common set of practices for utilizing for flood-proofing the existing spaces. Maybe that's installing shelving upstairs or up high in the space. Maybe it's using inventory upstairs. Maybe it's filling basements. What is that common set of practices? But also very much thinking about short and longer term solutions. And we define short term probably as like within the end of this year versus long term, really thinking about what do we need to do in a more aggressive way with downtown, including climate mitigation as really embedded in those strategies. And in terms of resources, building a public fund that building owners and businesses can draw upon. And that public fund isn't just neutral. It actually defines what it wants to invest in, such that those practices are being deployed and supported. And then, of course, expertise and the state of Vermont is going to be critical, given both the resources, but also the amount of land and particularly the amount of parking that is in our downtown. So.
Thank you, John. And who are we missing? Sorry. Oh, Peter.
We had a wonderful conversation about improving preparedness, communication, and disaster alert systems. I really want to give the city a lot of credit for showing up in force to listen to the community there. I think we see a role for the commission to form some small subgroup advisory panel to support the city in updating the emergency response plan and really focusing on those members of our community who aren't going to be on emergency or VT alert or aren't going to be looking at the Facebook page, and we're going to need some additional supports beyond our traditional modes of communication, and really to think about what those traditional modes are and to continuously be updating those. And it starts with a survey about how do you want to be notified, right? If you don't have power, how would you get information? If you don't have internet, how do you want to get this? Sort of basic questions so we can make sure that our sort of mass broadcast system is getting as many people as possible. And then the sort of hand-to-hand, person-to-person outreach can help fill the remaining gap with the necessary expertise to deal with those members of the community who might have different needs. So it was a great conversation and really look forward to that. But I think it's an opportunity to align with the overall commission work, but not necessarily be within the direct scope, but more of a sort of task group that provides input to the city's sort of reworking of the communications plan. So,
thank you, Peter. So, I guess I would say that the discussion in this room of the commission was really thoughtful. It was sparky. There was lots of good ideas around ways to improve the concept, the diversity of the group, how we manage that, how it has expertise, but it also represents the community, whether we need to think about stipends for the group, especially, as needed to be able to allow any participant to be successful in participating. So, really good conversation. I think we have done a lot of work tonight. We've done a lot really fast. I really appreciate your patience with me and the way that this is pushed. I don't think we should go back and work on that vision statement right now. I think we want to be fresh when we do that. I do think that there's going to be more of these facilitated sessions, some of them very small, in potentially forming some working groups around these different topics. If you signed up in your room to express your interest, that's great. We have some sign sheets here that I'm hoping maybe Sarah and Ben could put out on the table and allow you to sign into one of these priority areas to express your interest so that you can be called upon. But we'll also put this out electronically, so nothing has to be finished tonight. I just want to quickly describe where we are today in terms of thinking about starting to build this commission. We want to do this quickly. We want to continue momentum. We don't want to wait 2 months to pull this off. We're going to be looking for a balance of life experiences, skills, expertise, and experience in everything from architecture to engineering to environmental science, downtown development, fundraising, land use planning, property ownership, business, low income issues, nonprofit management, financing, clean energy development, housing, and we're also going to try to keep this a small committee. So it's going to be tight. And it's going to have a lot of energetic personalities, no doubt. To apply for yourself or to nominate someone else, send contact information in a 1-paragraph description. So this is on the sheet that we gave out earlier. We can put some of these on the table out there. 1-paragraph description of why you want to participate and what some of the skills are that you would bring. What could you represent on that commission? And you'll see there's directions to send it to M. Smith in the city, who's going to gather these for the review committee, and put a byline on it, Montpelier Commission for Recovery and Resilience. So today we're going to, together these organizations, the overarching founders of this are going to review these applications and weigh them and try to find a great balanced group. But there will be plenty of other opportunities for volunteers to drive the agenda in all of these different areas as work goes forward. I want to close by thanking the Montpelier School District for hosting us tonight, for Superintendent Bonesteel, who's been here all evening, Principal Jason Gingold, who's been a very generous host with us, and Evelyn Prim from the city for all the legwork and communications work she's done. Front Porch Forum, the bridge, especially the bridge. And where is Cassandra? Unbelievable, the coverage you guys have given. What a tremendous community institution. And not to this, and not to anyone in person, but to really flesh out the story and bring us together to understand where we are. So unbelievably powerful. The Times Argus too. And Christopher and his great crew at Orca, we really appreciate everything you've done. Everyone who's worked tonight, from Lauren, Megan, everyone who's manned the technology and made the online voting work when none of us had ever done this before, to the facilitation team. I want to thank the city. It's not easy to, when you're working so hard, you're really in it and you're fighting to do the best job you can every day. And there's a lot to listen to when you're in the city government, and mostly people come to you when they want to complain to you. So let's appreciate these great people who are doing good work. Let's give them a round of applause. Where would we be without them? So also, obviously, our friends at Montpelier Alive, Katie and her team, tremendous work. The Montpelier Foundation, the fact that they were able together to raise $2,330,000 already, and more coming to the businesses, and to follow up and support this resiliency effort. But mainly thanks to all of you, in person, people online, who are dedicated to this place. You wouldn't be here unless you're here to stand up for your community, for democracy, for the collective power we have to drive our future. And we all feel the tragedy of this moment. We all, that issue of mental health wasn't just for those people. This is fundamental to where we are. We're dealing with trauma. But we especially care for people at the front line who bore the great brunt of this. The low-income folks, the business people, the peoples whose homes were so terribly damaged. And they are still facing loss, uncertainty, and exhaustion, and they need our support. And we're all with them, I think. But we also know that climate change is real, and that our collective future, our well-being, and especially the future of our children and upcoming generations depends on us. We understand together the need for a resilient future in this place that we love, or we wouldn't be here. So I want to thank you for being online, for your neighbors, for this city, for a resilient future for our place and beyond. Let's take courage in each other and build on the unity it's going to take to succeed. Now I'd like to introduce Mayor McCullough to say a closing remark.
Thank you, Paul. I want to start out by with some thanks. I want to thank everyone here and all the members of the community who've come out tonight and the two previous workshops here and online to help move this work forward. I want to thank the city mayor, the city manager, all the departments heads, all the city employees and people at Montpelier Alive who organized and conducted these forums. And I especially want to thank Paul Costello. I know he's going to growl at this, but for his expertise and his tireless work as a volunteer to guide us through this process. It's been a long process. The first chapter of our response to the flood to address the immediate crisis began even before the rain started falling, when our city employees from the Department of Public Works, the Department of Recreation, who staffed the tents and tables at the hub, and all of our public employees mobilized with thousands of volunteers and donors to meet the immediate crisis. Without them, we would be nowhere near where we are now. The second chapter of this effort began at our first meeting up at Vermont College on, coincidentally, another rainy night, when hundreds of members of the community came out to share their experiences, ideas, and visions for the future. The breadth of ideas that we have heard, and the level of participation has been more than we see in a whole year's worth of council meetings. And I thank all of you for your input. Tonight, we embark on the third chapter of our response, deciding on our priorities and working to achieve them. This will be a long haul, bringing together community members and leaders, and I call on everyone in our community to stay involved as we move forward. The job begins tonight, and I thank you all for your hard work.
Who's turning off the mic?